very difficult to achieve. We make it almost impossible to have someone be acceptable as they are. And so people fake who they are. You know, they fake the real, so we think what we're getting is the real, and it isn't. What else? Why else would someone be afraid to disguise the real self? Yes?
Because you're trying to act in a way that other people want you to act.
Yes, you're mimicking other people's response. You're trying to read in everything that they say and do what they really expect from you. And so you think, if I say this, if I show this part, they're not going to like it, so I better give them this. I'm going to give them what they want. There's less hassle. You also get reward if you give them what they want. You get punishment if you don't. And if the real self means punishment, then you're being dishonest with the real self. Without honesty, there is nothing natural in what you're doing or how you're feeling. Your life then is based upon an artificial presence. And the artificial presence has no bottom. So no matter what you put into it in the way of emotions from other people to make you feel better about some other parts, you compensate. Where you're dishonest here in your work, you overcompensate and try to get the emotional input back in your friends and family. But it doesn't work. It's still the bottomless pit. So you can't be one thing to one person and something else to someone else and someone else to someone else. And yet we have all these different images we project towards other people. And it creates enormous confusion. Yes?
Could be trauma or pain that you may have stored from the past.
Could be pain from the past, yes. Yes?
It makes you vulnerable because they know what it is that you're about, then they can take it away from you and hurt you.
She says that it makes you vulnerable because if you're honest, you're vulnerable. And then they could take that, take the real self and distort it. Well, the whole idea is that only if we are vulnerable are we honest. You cannot be hurt if you're vulnerable. Now, think of this. Every song you've ever heard has told you, and forget country western, those are manically depressing songs. I lost my car, I lost my horse, I lost my house, I lost my wife, lost my heart, lost my heart, lost my heart, lost my heart. I lost my money. They lose everything. Did you ever notice that? That's how they get a bestseller. Just put a lot of loss in the lyrics and it wins. And sing it like you're crying. I grew up in hillbilly country. I can't stand it. But anyhow, the idea is that when you are vulnerable, you're open. When you're open, you're expressing what is natural and a sense of balance within yourself. In other words, you're acknowledging, this is who I am. You're sharing true intimacy. Now, intimacy is not sexuality. Unfortunately, we've tried to make sexuality and intimacy the same. They are not. They are radically opposite. Intimacy means you're expressing what you really feel, what you really are at your essence. You're laying it out. A person can accept or reject it, but you must respect also that you have a sanctity, and within the sanctity, you alone make the decisions, no one else. You alone decides who comes into that sanctuary and shares thatness, shares the self. But if they're going to share the self, they must share the self as you have expressed it, not as they would manipulate it. Then the idea is, have you allowed yourself to be vulnerable without changing what you're being vulnerable about to meet the needs of other people? And generally what happens when someone knows that you're being vulnerable and open and honest, what's the first thing they do? They take advantage. What else? They try changing it. Right? You've given them access. You've said, here's what I am. Here's what I feel. They say, oh, good. Now, you know you're kind of stupid about this. I mean, let me set you straight on this. And suddenly we say, hold on, that's offensive. That's offensive. You don't offend someone on a level who's opened themselves up. You have no right to. Instead, you have a right to say, I shared what I am. If it's not good enough as it is, then goodbye. And if you don't say that, I promise you, you're going to be hurt. With openness and vulnerability, you are allowing yourself to be as free and flexible as you can. You have movement. You have fluidity. You have range of intellectual and creative expression. But with invulnerability, you are closed. You are rigid. You have completely rigidified your entire nature. You're fearful of being discovered, your inner secret, your inner passion, your inner bliss, your inner desire, your inner being, because you haven't got to the point where you've accepted that the inner is good. And so you're trying to hold on to any deficiency by keeping it limited and keeping the access limited. So people only take a little peeky-boo, that's it, little tiny peek in. Once in a while they'll get a peek in. You can't move. When you're not vulnerable, you're stuck. Then you get stuck in a job, stuck in a relationship, stuck in a career, stuck in a position in life, stuck in a place. And you try to defend the merits of being stuck rather than opening yourself up to move on from there. You spend more time defending the ego and its wrong-headedness than you do in realizing there is nothing to defend in being open. You never have to defend vulnerability. You never have to defend the true and honest self. It is self-expressive. Here's what I am. You like it or you don't like it. I said the other day on the radio, I think it was on Friday, when the person I was raising funds was trying to explain, oh, this tape is for everyone. I said, hold on a second. It is not. And I was emphatic. And I said, let me explain something. 90% of the American population, I don't give a fiddler's anything for. All right? They're not nice people. I want nothing to do with them. They've got everyone else having something to do with them, right? They don't need me. I only pay attention to the people who are paying attention to life. That's my choice. It's my call. It's my right. I'm not going to pretend that I can make a difference. I can't open a racist mind, a sexist mind. I can't turn a person whose whole life is so convoluted and warped, so selfish and distastefully vulgar about everything that's decent. I can't turn them around. Billy, it's a game to think we can. It's the extension of the most pathological ego who says, yeah, I'll go in there and turn all these people around. Yeah, follow me. I've got the answers. Right, You think you're going to turn people around? No. The only person who turns a person around is the person, no one else. And they'll do it when and if they decide. Now, they may let you think that you're making a difference, but let's face it, how many times in your life have people let you think you were making a difference and you never made a difference? Right? Because the day came when it was show time and there was nothing to show. Go ahead, I spent all this time and energy on you. I gave you so much. Go ahead, you can do. No, I can't, it was a game. You were an idiot. You dumb sucker. Man, I played your ego so easily. You are such a fool. What do you mean a fool? I gave you so much. You said, give me your knowledge. I give you not. Give me your compassion. Give me your heart. I gave it to you. Well, aren't you an idiot then? Because all the while you weren't seeing that I wasn't changing. The only thing you were feeling was your own energy that you were projecting. Had you gotten out of your own ego, you would have seen that you hadn't changed anything. The world was still here when you got back. All you were doing is walking around looking in the mirror saying, aren't I beautiful? Aren't I beautiful? I must be doing something. And it's every politician. It's every religious leader. It's all these people. It's all a game of megalomania. If we're honest, that's what it is. Of course, we can't be honest. Huh? Yes, I guess everybody makes a big difference. That's good. That's politically right statement. We all make a difference. Yeah, bullshit. Nobody makes a difference about anything, ever. It's the person who makes a difference. But we all line up right behind someone because we like to benefit from the illusion, when in reality, when it comes to doing something, we don't do it. And the fact is, the world is the way it is today because we don't do it. We don't need any more messages on love and peace and coexistence and decency, do we? I mean, I think we've had enough words written. Is there someone in the world who's still ignorant on this subject? I don't know anyone who doesn't know about it. Well, then why do we have the conflict? I don't know of a corporation or corporate head in the world that doesn't know about the effects of pollution and acid rain and ozone and depletion? I don't know of any. Do you? Is there a CEO? Is there a corporate person? Is there a stockholder, a shareholder? Is there an investment broker? Is there anyone alive who doesn't know anything about anything? We know everything about how to survive and thrive and grow. Then why is it that only about 1% of the population are engaged in it? But boy, there's a lot of money made by pretending, right? It's like the Environmental Protection Agency. Protecting us from what? We need to be protected from the Environmental Protection Agency. The Food and Drug Administration, a propaganda arm of the drug industry. The AMA, a monopoly union for medical doctors. No, I mean, that's the reality. Like it or not, that's reality. But that's being honest. But again, we have to lie. Oh, yes, well, we need these organizations. Yes, we need $1 trillion in medical bills each year for the lawyers and doctors. And no, we don't. So what I'm suggesting is, and exactly what I said, I don't have to prove to anybody anything, nor do you. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. And if someone wants your help, let them ask for it. More than that, then, let them show that they deserve it. When someone shows they deserve your time and deserve your attention, then it's a lesson that they're going to pay attention to because they're paying for it. You don't pay for the lesson, you don't learn the lesson. And isn't it interesting that the people in our society who seem, from my experience, to be learning the lessons are people who have paid the lesson for themselves. The people who don't want to pay any lessons want to hook onto someone else. Bubba Rubba or some other, and then off they go on Wonderland, right? Nobody learns from that, right? Yes? You can offer help if you understand why you're offering help and see that someone is doing something with it. If people do not respect and honor the energy you're giving and do not come to that with some sense of openness, they're not going to do it. How many people in here have counseled alcoholics or drug addicts? Do you know how hard it is to get any drug addict unless they're willing to actually commit themselves to change, Always in a circle. Even though they're off the drugs, they still have the same manipulative personality. They'll look 1,000 ways to nail you. And they will nail you because you're trusting. You're believing in them. You've accepted, yeah, I'm going to change. But even though the game's on them, they're still playing it as if they can control it. But when a person enters a 12-step program, the very first thing they do, they have to acknowledge that their life has just been out of control, out of balance. They're responsible. But the moment they start getting better, one of the first things that people do is they shift from they're responsible for the accidents and mess in their life to it was someone else's fault. You see, when you start blaming, then you go back to your addiction. And that's the first step they go when they go right back off again. Well, I started smoking again. Why'd you start smoking again? Well, you know, people at work made me crazy. All right, so those people made you crazy. Then you should be in Bellevue and not smoking. Okay? We'll hook you up to electroconvulsive machine and fry your brains. You see, but it's different than if someone said, I'm out of control, I need help. Will you help me? That's when you can help people. When people acknowledge they need help and will honor the help, then the likelihood is those are people who are going to change with the help. But if you think that you can go up to people and say, let me help you, friend, you're not going to help them. You may think you're going to help them, you're not helping them. What's going to happen in a month when you're not there? Nothing. It's back to the way it is. I've seen this phenomena. I've seen it. I've talked with so many behavioralists, psychologists, sociologists, therapists, physicians. And it's a lesson hard to learn because the old lesson is that, that everybody's going to change if you give them the right energy. And the reality is not that. So we are taught a myth, and then we try to honor the myth instead of honoring reality. You honor reality, oh, you have all this other time, and you start to see something come from the energy you give people. You start to see something grow. You start to see a sense of confidence and love and help and care. And all over America, there are millions of people who are in help groups who are helping one another and helping themselves. And that's a lot different. That's the first time we've had a constructive program for helping with social change in these different programs that are out there. The support groups, the 12-step programs, there are a lot of different ones, versus someone who goes to therapy for 25 years, right? And are still in therapy 25 years later, and no one ever figures out, why are they still in therapy 3 days a week after 20 years? And yet that happens. They become codependent. So if we can just summarize some of the points here. Compassion, sensitivity, openness come when a person feels comfortable with who they are and are willing to give the quality of their energy to another human being. But it serves no purpose to give the quality of your inner being to people who either abuse it or deny its virtue, or even that you're giving a gift. When there's so many deserving people in this world who would honor that gift and would do something positive with it. It comes down to this. Ultimately, for every person you help that doesn't need the help, doesn't want the help, or doesn't honor that help, you're keeping it from a person who would do something with the help and who would become a stronger person for it. You know, it's like feeding a person who is fat and overweight and just moaning because they haven't had a meal in 2 minutes, and you don't then give the food to a person who's starving to death and who would need it. There's a limit to what we're capable of giving because of the needs of so many people. So don't be afraid to qualify what you're giving. You have a right to do that. And yet guilt keeps us from doing that. So get beyond guilt. Now, to know yourself requires knowing what you're not. I think it's very important that you, in your diary, write, what aren't you? Because frequently to determine what you are is to acknowledge what you are not. For instance, if I'm not a liar, then I'm an honest person. If I'm not a thief, then I'm a person that can be trusted with things. But what if you realize that there are certain things you couldn't honestly say that you're not? Then that means that even if you haven't acknowledged it, it means that you are. And that tells us a lot about ourselves. So look at what you aren't and what you are. It'll give you a better definition of what your real needs are. What drives us? I mean, what really gets us going? Now, is the drive based upon fear, insecurity, or love? Love of life and wanting to engage it. You got to know what drives you. Otherwise, you won't have any control over that drive. There's nothing worse than realizing you've been spending a lot of energy on something and it hasn't been for the right reasons. Not necessarily that it's the wrong project, the wrong reasons for even the right project. What is effortless and spontaneous, and do we find pleasure in it? A lot of people have gotten away from the idea that life should be play. There should be spontaneity, and there should be effortlessness in all of our activities. And when you do something that you really like, it will be effortless because you're willing to surrender the need to it, the need to control, the need to get something back. You're doing it unconditionally, and what's done unconditionally always feels good. I mean, for instance, if I get up to give a talk to a group of senior citizens, and I don't charge, I never have, any group of senior citizens, and it is so effortless. I don't have to have the boards. The boards are for the people to have a guide to follow. And knowing that that person has come immediately knows that there's a sense of trust. They're trusting that they're going to be open to receive and that they're going to have something that is shared. When you have people who are willing to come together, you have to honor that. That begins the process of communication. Now, frequently, because we have so many other convoluted needs that are not real, we interfere with what's real and what we want to share with someone because we've let this honesty of the person coming, wanting to give or receive, our honesty coming together, wanting to give and receive, but what's given and received is not what we came together for. Something else takes its place. Do you follow me? Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you know what it is that you're capable of giving and what you're capable of receiving, what is effortless, what is spontaneous, what feels good, that's what's coming from the heart. You don't have to define it. You don't have to explain it. It's like a sunset. You know, you don't have to define or explain it. It just is. You just engage it. it's like a cold glass of water. Everyone says it tastes great. Well, it doesn't have any taste, per se, but it is what it is. It's thirst quenching. We love it. It nourishes. We understand it. It's like a hug. It's like a bond. It's like, someone saying, give me a hug. You don't have to put anything else into it. You don't have to say, well, should I or shouldn't I? What if I hug too much or too long? Should I have my arms here or here? Is there a different meaning if my hug has my cheek close to their cheek, or should my cheek be kind of away? Should I kind of look at them when I hug or look away when I hug? How should I break the hug? How intense should the hug be? Should the hug be with a little rub on the back, or should the hug be stationary? Should I swing a little bit? Is a hug a swinging hug or a stationary hug? Is there any stroking of the hair allowed in this hug? Is this a huggy, strokey, swingy, feely, beboppy? What's going into this hug? Or if it's a wasp hug. Have you ever seen a wasp hug? You're a wasp. You're something. I don't know what the hell you are.
I don't know.
He says he's not German. Now, there are different hugs. I'll show you. Now, don't you take this personally. Now, some people, when they go to hug, right? Men in particular, they feel very difficult about hugging. Where I grew up, one of my buddies used to come up when we were walking. He'd grab my arm like this, right? And we'd be talking. Now, everybody looked at that in my high school. Everybody. But they never said anything because we were both football athletes, right? And when you're an athlete, you can get away with that stuff. You ever notice how many times guys go, hey, big, good game? Yeah, well, try doing that not on a football field. Hi, John. How are you? So anyway, we consider some things appropriate. For instance, if you go, Jesus, save us, in church, it's great. Say it out on the street, right? Right outside the church, and suddenly, crazy person, right? Say it in a cab, crazy person. Now, when a wasp shakes your hand, you always know it. There's a distance. Now, see, when you're in Middle East, Middle Eastern people are right up in your face people. Do you ever notice? They're right up here talking to you like this, and you're kind of going like this and looking away like, this man kissed me, I'll go slug him. And yet Americans don't feel comfortable. We like about a 2.5 to 3 foot distance. We like this distance, unless you're Italian. But and Italians in Italy, by the way, Italians are right up here too. And Italians love, when they're talking, they're always holding your arm or something like that. Here in America, their bellies touch. They're different. That's why they need 3 feet. They rub navels like this. And shake a hand. This is, it's this kind of, the old wasp shake is, hi son, I haven't seen you in 35 years. Welcome home. It's one shake and that's it. And in other cultures, it's a pinch on the cheek, not in this culture. It's a rub of the head. A hug for men is, like, it's very uncomfortable. It's like, it's
Perfect. Right. If you're not hug every day, you're missing something.
Thank you. Just sit down there.
But let me get my paper. Thank you.
Don't ask me for my number either. I'm not going to. But this is what gets in the way, right? And think of all the things that could happen if you didn't let anything get in the way of just communicating what you really felt. Right? Just whatever you think, say it. Whatever you feel, express it. And that is what real and honest communication is. You got to get out of the way, and that means getting out of your own way, and that means stopping all these other voices for coming forward, because none of those voices are spontaneous, none of them are natural, and none of them feel effortless. They all have something attached to it. Guilt, fear, intrepidation, anxiety. For something it should be completely natural. Expression. And think of what could happen in your life if you just had that ease of expression. Right? And so that's the way that you should start, and you should start now. You should start in the ability to express yourself, and remember, there's a difference. Like you have a lot of these assertiveness courses that people just learn to be rude and vulgar. In the context of sharing what is sensitive and what is sharing what is nurturing. Because we never fear that which is nurturing. It is natural and it feels good. The whole idea is honesty and expression is supposed to be a way that we can express where something good comes from it, not where you use that spontaneity to hurt someone or to invade the sanctity of anyone's inner being. Now, how do we sublimate? Now, what you sublimate and how you sublimate will frequently tell you what parts of your life you're not honest with and you're not finding fulfillment and actualization in. Now, for men, for instance, what's one of the most common ways men sublimate? Sports. Why are sports so important for a man? Yes, it identifies what you consider uniquely masculine. Now, what are the most popular sports for men? Football, baseball, basketball. What do all of them have in common? They're team sports. Men need to belong. Irrespective of the idea of the lonesome, dude, men love the company of other men. But in the reality of our society, once you become a family person, you lose the comfort of other men. That's a tragedy in our society. One of the biggest mistakes the institution of marriage has ever created is exclusivity of time and attention. Huh? No, we're going to come to some of the women's issues in a minute. We're just focused now for the men. I can't tell you how many men, best friends, does any of this happen? Best friends, and then the guy gets married and suddenly they're no longer best friends. They no longer have the time to spend with you. They have the time, but there is a thought that it's competitive, especially if you're a single man. Somehow you would, lead this person away, or into something else. There should be no reason for that. If a person's a friend, they should be a friend, and you should make time in your life for friends. A very important part of being balanced and healthy is to have quality relationships with men and women. I do not believe in monogamy as we now know it. I'm not referring to sexual. I'm referring into exclusivity of time and attention with another human being. It is unnatural. It is stupid. And most of the crisis in marriages and relationships caused by one person trying to be all things to another person with an impossible task. You end up becoming, the mother, the mistress, the soothsayer, and all these things. And you can't be all those things. It's not natural, and it's not meant to be. And similarly, a man cannot be all things to a woman. So why can't people be smart enough to select what they're willing to give into a relationship and honor what they can give that is natural, that allows the relationship to be stronger for what they're given, instead of giving what they honestly can't give and then feeling constantly trapped or smothered or the loss of. And for a man, the loss of other friendships that are meaningful is terrible to their sense of self-esteem. There's almost a betrayal of the masculine bonds that historically have always kept men together, and that's why the idea of sports and team sports and people doing things that share a common masculinity, even though it may be seemingly barbaric, it's one of the ways that men identify what is uniquely masculine in the effort to pursue a higher state of excellence. Well, a higher state of excellence can be in a lot of things, but in sports it's something that is more constant because sports run all year round, where if it were in something else, it might be one achievement and you might not be exposed to it. And so they identify. They feel like they're one of the team, and that's why people almost take on and adopt a team. That adoption becomes a part of their extended male family. So when they're taking that time on a Sunday afternoon to watch that ball game, they're not just watching a sport to distract themselves to waste 3 or 4 hours. They're continuing a bond that identifies what is uniquely masculine and lonely in them, and showing support that they're still connected. Most men are terribly lonely in their relationships because the moment they try to share the fact that they are lonely and they'd like a male friend, then it's, well, my brother-in-law should be a nice male friend for you. No. No, your brother-in-law should be dead. See, And this whole idea that we can fix people by fixing them up with someone, it doesn't work that way. So if you have a relationship, you should establish, and that's what I was saying, what kind of friends do you need? What do you want to share with your friends? But if we don't do that, then a part of ourself has to suffer. The fear that they fear is causing real physical reactions, real trauma, real headaches, real consternation, real procrastination, real confusion. So it's easy to see why people then dishonor the body, dishonor the mind, dishonor the spirit, dishonor life. By lying, abusing, denying, deceiving, withdrawing, avoiding. It's easy. They wake up every morning, they see Freddy Kruegers by the millions. They just want to close their eyes, put their fingers in their ears, and just sit down in a little ball with a sheet over their head. Yeah. Wake them up when the commercials come. They'll take something symptomatic to relieve it. What areas of free will and freedom do you use and not use? How do you use freedom? Make a list. Very important. This is going to tell you an awful lot about yourself. How you use freedom. How do you use it? For instance, when was the last time you did something completely out of character and spontaneous and different than what anyone would expect from you? When was the last time? Not very frequent, is it? No, kind of do the predictable. Why? When did you use freedom last, and how did you use it? If you don't use the freedoms we have, then they're like a tissue that turns to fat. The whole idea of being free is free to express yourself, free to do something. Then it doesn't matter that it doesn't work. We have to have a responsibility with freedom, not to abuse others. But the whole idea of being free is free to express what's in our hearts and minds. And if you're not afraid of what's in you, you'll find other people who will acknowledge that and honor that as well. I've never found a situation where I couldn't find someone who was also interested in freedom and who would be interested in what I am and I in turn what they were. You get two people sharing freedom, you have endless ways of demonstrating that. But people who are afraid of freedom within themselves, these are the people who are invulnerable. You could know them for 100 years and never know them because they're never going to let you know what's really in them. And so what are you doing with it? How have you expressed it? How are you using it? How are you making it work for you? It's amazing when I meet people from foreign countries, that Eastern Europe countries who come here, they can't believe how little we've done with all this freedom. They take a look, and boy, they can analyze it in a second. Man, cab drivers are the best. And I end up speaking all the time with these cab drivers from all over the world, and who say, in our country, we don't have any right to freedom. We can't express our freedom of feelings, emotions, political views, sexual views, religious views, creative views. We don't have any of this. And here, you all just abuse freedom. You think freedom is just gluttony, or just being a loudmouth, or just being selfish with your own interests. They don't see people using freedom in a constructive way to help, in a meaningful way, society grow in themselves in the process. And a very small percentage of the people are engaged in that. Most people are not. So ask yourself, put it down, write it down. Uncertainty creates fear, which limits free will. As long as you're uncertain about who you are and about what you want and about what you need to get what you want, even into the process of enjoying every day, the uncertainty becomes that big bugaboo that stands right in front of you. Every day you get up to do something and you're uncertain. I don't know if I should go back to school. I don't know if I should move to San Diego. I don't know if I should be straight. I don't know if I should be gay. I don't know if I should be a man or woman. I don't know if I should be a Martian. I don't know if I should eat seaweed or sand. People are very confused about themselves in our society. They don't know what they should be because they're uncertain of everything. But here's the irony, and here is its opposite. Whatever you fear, you become. The need for certainty means that you will never change. And the people who protect certainty are the Republicans. We want to rent this one more time, remember that. This Republican club here. Why do you think conservatives are so conservative? They have something to conserve. You see, the whole idea of the people who are always in positions of power is they need certainty in all things. They can't have a society where people express themselves openly and freely. They cannot have people manifesting a change because they would lose their status quo. They would lose control and power. And most of power and control is an illusion to begin with. It's the illusion someone has a better insight and knowledge over what you need rather than what you need, of how to deal with problems in the world instead of how you would deal with problems. Well, take a look at the mess we have in the world today. I think anyone in this room could have been wiser about how to deal with Saddam Hussein than how it was done. And now look at all the GIs and their wives who are suffering from the diseases that were picked up over there. They think it's the environment. I think it was the vaccines, the deadly germs. They gave them anthrax vaccines for germ biological warfare. Do you have any idea? Those weren't tested. They don't know what the heck's in those. Now that's in these people's bodies. And they'll deny that, of course, for the next 20 years, just like they did Agent Orange and a lot of other things. Now you see, so when you need certainty, well, I'll change when, you know, and I'll make it when. And when I have a friend that's good, I'll replace this friend that I don't like. And when I have a relationship that's perfect, I'll replace this bad relationship. When I have a body I really like and know how to get it, then I'll start exercising. And, well, it's impossible. You end up self-defeating. But the other side of it is that if with uncertainty in anyone who is not secure will automatically create fear. So then you look for certainty. Ironically, certainty means that you can never accept uncertainty. Do you see this? It is one of the most fundamental concepts in why people change. Let me explain this again. People don't change in any area of their life unless they have confidence that the change is going to be beneficial. They're not going to let go of anything, even a bad thing, and replace it with something good unless there's confidence that they're going to be able to succeed in what they're doing. Therefore, they start looking for input that allows them to feel some certainty their change is going to work, the certainty the business is going to work, or the relationship, or the job, or the career, or the move, or whatever. Trouble is, nothing in life is certain. Now, the need for certainty breeds a contempt for uncertainty. But it's only with uncertainty that we can change. Being confident with uncertainty allows you the flexibility and freedom to be yourself and take the consequences of whatever happens. A person who is healthy and balanced, no matter what doesn't work, they simply say, it's okay. You know, I mean, hey, nothing in life was predicted to work all the time or any time. I took a chance. I tried. It didn't work. I'll try something else. They're not afraid of uncertainty. They make it work for them. But think of the person who is terrified of uncertainty. So you represent, in change, you represent uncertainty. They don't know how you're going to act, how you're going to respond. They don't know what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat. They don't know anything. You see, when you're uncertain, you can be honest and spontaneous. The spontaneousness, the capacity to use freedom to grow means that you're not controlled by certainties. You're not limited by the external boundaries that are reinforced by all institutions. Therefore, you become a threat to institutions and the normal paradigm. So anyone who is growing, by the very act of their growing, becomes a part of a different belief system. You are now in the void. You are in a different area of life. You're not recognizable. You used to be someone that had your hair a certain length. You talked a certain way. I knew what you were going to think and do. I knew how you were going to react about all things. Now you've gone through this stupid change. Now I don't understand you. I mean, one day you're one way and another day another way. No, each day I'm expressing what I feel that day. Yeah, but that's crazy. That can't work. It works. Now I'm doing what's natural for me. It's effortless. I get up and I use the day to express freedom to create a life for myself. And whatever I'm doing, I will do it with honesty, openness, and a naturalness. Well, that's not healthy. Oh, it's very healthy. To the contrary, the old way was not healthy. So you see, you have diametrically opposite poles. So when people judge your change, whether it's a change in diet or exercise or attitude or career or belief or anything, they're judging you from the need of what certainty do you have that what you're going to do is working. You're going to say, I don't have any. They're going to say, you're stupid. You could then reverse it and say, what certainty do you have in your life that you're doing what you're doing is healthy for you? And they will have no answer. Because when you need to do everything based upon certainties, then there is no certainty it's going to work. Ironically, nothing that is determined to be certain is ever certain. The more you need to control certainty, you become its opposite, uncertain. The whole idea of needing certainty is because you're uncertain of certainty. Otherwise, you see, you would have people in power saying, I'm not afraid of my power. I'm not afraid of loss of power. So I'm going to be open and honest. And that's why you see all these people doing all this lying and conniving to keep control and power. Yes?
Yeah, but can you achieve change by without being subjected to time and space?
Time and space are not synonymous. You can change at any moment in any way that you choose. Change is merely a thought. Once you think something, you can begin the process of becoming it. You amorphosize into what you believe. If I believe in vegetarianism, the very act of believing in it means I no longer believe in something that was imbalancing. It doesn't have to have a time-space reality. The thought itself becomes the foundation upon everything I'm going to learn after that, building upon that. So each day I learn something else, I can change my perspective of what was there before. I'm taking something out and putting something in its place. I'm changing the foundation.
I mean, right there, in that minute.
In that second.
Yeah, by focusing your total attention
Yes.
on the problem.
Yes, the problem does disappear. Look, the moment I decide not to eat meat, I become a vegetarian. It's like that. It's instantaneous. Now, it may take me a year or 2 years to learn all the different ways I can eat vegetarian foods, to be ideally healthy and combine them and make them interesting. But in the second I decided I wanted to be a vegetarian, I become a vegetarian. The second I decide I will not accept any hidden agendas, then instantly any hidden agenda, I will confront it. I will not accept it. Whereas if I say, well, I'll continue to accept some lies, I mean, it's not a healthy relationship, so I'll accept some abuse, I'll accept some, deceit, and I'll accept, once a week, I'll accept, you can smack me on Tuesday, but, and then you can lie to me on Wednesday, and you can, cry on Thursday, and I'll forgive you on Friday, and then you'll do it all again. No, that's it. I'm one of those people who believe in catharsis. That when you decide it's time, then that's it, it's time. And that's why we did the original exercise, that enough's enough. I mean, I've had it, that's it. Now I change. If you don't get to the point where you've had it and change, then you make time and reality synonymous, which means that you will never change, because you will always have anchored into you the limiting factor. And remember from last week's exercise, it is never your strengths that determine the quality or outcome of your relationship. It is your weaknesses. It is never what you've resolved, it is what is unresolved. It is not what you've actualized, it is what you have not actualized. It is not the gifts of your joy or heart or love or compassion or attention or focus or discipline. It is always what you have not focused on that will limit what you have done. Ultimately, all the good deeds in your life can be diminished by what you have not paid attention to, not what you've paid attention to. So if all you do is pay attention to putting something else in, and you do not take what doesn't work out, then you will forever be limited by what doesn't work. And that is what we're here to pay attention to. It's not that you're all not nice people, because you are. That's inherent in the being. It is what's limiting you from actualizing your complete and total potential as a human being. To be free to love unconditionally, share spontaneously, be open, know what your real needs are, and honor the real needs. Otherwise, you're going to be locked on. It's like building a giant cruise ship with everything you ever wanted in your fantasy, dreams, desires, and be anchored to a 100-foot anchor that's your past, that's your fear. I don't care how big the ship is, you're staying in port. You're going nowhere with this cruise nowhere. And think of how much time and energy you spent on trying to input good, but you haven't let go of the bad. So the good doesn't mean anything, doesn't go anywhere. You don't do anything good with your good, because behind that is always the fear, holding it, the negative, holding it. The idea is let go of the negative, let it go, let it free flow, so you can actualize positive all the time. Okay? That's our lesson for tonight. Now, what we're going to do is